Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again. And today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we're talking about Snap's return to the App Store. What's going on with that? When is that going to happen? As well as some other, I think, relevant information surrounding it. So definitely one of the biggest questions I've gotten a lot on stream has been, hey, Snap is back, it's unbanned, but it's still not in the App Store. Any idea what's going on with that? As well as other related things like, hey, when is compensation going to be happening? What's compensation going to be like? So that's this kind of stuff we're going to be talking about today. So Second Dinner did make a post last night thanking everyone for their continued patience while waiting for Snap to return to the App Store, and that when they have more information, they will share it. But right now, it is playable on existing downloads. The web shop is online and is still available on Steam. But in-app purchases in the app and being available in mobile app stores are currently not a thing right now. And that's a pretty big deal for quite a bunch of reasons. One of which is the fact that some people deleted the game off of their phone as a result of this whole situation. I mean, there are two different things that happen here. One, I've heard from a handful of people that they got suggested by support to actually delete and reinstall the app to help deal with this issue. I can't imagine this happened to too many people, but I know it definitely happened to some people. And that's both a very sad but kind of funny expected outcome from support, because if you've ever dealt with Snap support before, it's very clearly outsourced, and like half of the time it seems like the support doesn't know what they're talking about. And clearly, in this case, the support had no idea what was going on. This was, I think, right after people first started having issues logging in, when it wasn't super clear of why that was happening. Some users were suggested by support to reinstall the game, and they deleted it, and what do you know? The game is not able to be reinstalled because it's not in the App Store. So definitely feel for those people. That's really rough. And then naturally, some people would just do that because that is a basic tech troubleshooting thing, right? Turn it off and turn it back on again, reinstall the app. And it's not very surprising that that would be some people's first attempt in being like, all right, well, I tried reopening the app a few times, it's not working, maybe reinstalling it will fix it, only to find the app is no longer there. And the app not being on app stores is a pretty big problem for the future of the game if it isn't something that can get resolved quickly. Because if it's not out on the app stores, all the people in the US, they can't update the game. So when it comes time for the next season to make its way to Marvel Snap, we're gonna have a pretty messy situation. So there is a pretty limited time frame on, how fast this would have to be remedied to not cause some larger damage to the game. Now, there are alternate ways around this. If you're someone who is in that camp of you deleted the app and you haven't been able to get back in, there are some things you can do. It's a little bit of a pain. I did this back when Pokemon Pocket had its early soft launch in New Zealand. Basically, if you make an account in another region for Apple, or I think this works on Google too, you can make a different account for that app store and then download the app from that region. And then as long as you're logged into that alternative Apple or Google account from that different region, you should still be able to download and update the game. It's a bit of a headache though, and it's just not the most enjoyable thing in the world to manage. You have to constantly be switching accounts. It's just not a hoop that I think many people are going to want to jump through. But I did want to mention it for, the handful of people out there who if you really, really want to get Marvel Snap back on your phone, there is a way to do it. But I imagine most people aren't going to want to deal with that and are just going to wait for it to return to the store. Another big question I have seen is surrounding the publisher Nuverse. So wasn't it announced that Nuverse was going to be moving out of the gaming space anyway, and ByteDance was going to be working to wind Nuverse down and just exit gaming entirely. And this is true. This was announced, I think, back in 2023, maybe early 2024. It was a while ago. So what happened there? Why does Second Dinner still use this publisher if we knew they were going to be moving out of the space? And ultimately, we don't know the exact answers to these questions, but it's not too hard to speculate a bit on it. If you actually look at the portfolio of Nuverse, Marvel Snap was, I think, by and large, the most successful thing they did, or the most successful, profitable thing they were a part of. So it makes sense that, this big company, if it's taking a while to wind things down, they're trying to figure out how to chop it up into a bunch of other pieces, the last thing that's going to go is the thing that was mainly profitable for them, or presumably mainly profitable from them, because we don't have the exact numbers, but at least from what I saw with the games Nuverse oversaw, Snap looked to be the main standout one. So why haven't they shut down yet? What's really going on there? I mean, it's a big company. It takes a long time for these types of things to happen sometimes. And that's just kind of the bureaucratic process. We don't really know what their agreement is with Marvel Snap. We don't know if they were planning to, maybe shutter Nuverse as a larger entity, and then they would still do, publishing for Snap under a new name. They could sell it off to a different company. Who knows? This is a lot of behind closed doors stuff. But the point is, up until recently with this new development, nothing had really changed with Nuverse and Second Dinner. Nuverse was still responsible for all the things they were before. If you don't know what Nuverse handles, it's a pretty decently long list, but a lot of the main things are like advertising. If you've ever seen a sponsorship campaign for Marvel Snap, a bigger streamer, YouTuber, etc., trying out the game, telling you to play it, Nuverse probably behind that. Nuverse, I think, is in part or mostly behind the Marvel Snap Discord and the creator program. They run the web store, so they're involved with like processing payments and whatnot, and that is definitely a big one because that is, how they're making their money, and a larger sum of Second Dinner's money because through the Nuverse web store, they make quite a bit more money since they don't have a cut being taken by Apple or Google or Steam. But it seems very clear after this chaotic situation, Second Dinner understandably wants to distance themselves from Nuverse as much as possible. And I think they are going to put in every effort they can to make that happen and make it happen quickly. Because every day this app isn't in the App Store, and probably almost more importantly for them, in-app purchases aren't able to be made. That's a day that's costing them a pretty significant chunk of change. So I imagine it is all hands on deck on the company right now to get this situation figured out. And they are already taking some steps to do so. They're making some new job listings. They're going to be bringing some of the publisher responsibilities in-house now. They are still definitely going to have to find another publisher. How long will that take? I don't know. And I think most other people don't know as well, because most people don't really have experience in this industry, and I'm no exception there. But I'd have to imagine, given the much older news about Nuverse and ByteDance, they were already shopping around a bit, but now they really got to put their pedal to the metal and get it done, which probably puts them in a little bit worse of a position in terms of like bargaining, since a new publisher is now probably going to know, oh, hey, you guys just had this massively bad thing happen. We can afford to pay you a little bit less if we're going to make an agreement with you. But, that's the cost of doing business. That's the cost of waiting until something like this happened to really jump ship and find a new company to publish the game. So yeah, to me, the big important deadline they're probably not going to want to miss would be coming up in about a week and a half with the new season. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted here if we get any new updated information. But for now, this is what we know. And then the big other question is compensation. A lot of people have talked about compensation. There's a lot of speculation about it. We don't really know anything for sure. I mean, the one thing we do know for sure is they did mention potentially compensating some alliance reward stuff for people who weren't able to finish that. But that's really the only hard confirmed thing that we have heard about so far. But here's my thoughts on compensation and what I think they would likely end up doing. One of the big questions is, hey, are they going to compensate everybody, or are they just going to compensate the people who got locked out? I think there's going to be a blanket compensation. Now, it's possible the people who got locked out might get slightly more. They might get a little bit of a cherry on top, basically just amounting to the daily missions or whatever else they missed out on. But I wouldn't expect too much specifically for the people locked out. There's been a whole lot of talk so far from Second Dinner about this bringing in a new era of Marvel Snap, and it raises some questions to me. It's been long speculated by a lot of people that, hey, maybe Nuverse is actually the evil, greedy publisher, and Second Dinner is just the humble indie dev getting screwed over by them. Personally, from everything I've seen, both publicly and some non-public stuff, I've always gotten the impression that, you know, the call is coming from inside the house. That Second Dinner was often very adamant that they weren't, you know, under pressure from any of their partners, that they were making these decisions for themselves. Only they know if that's true or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't have any special insight there, but that was something they tried to make abundantly clear over the last 2 years or so. But who knows? Maybe they were just trying to shield their publisher. Maybe they just didn't want that information being public because it was a bad look. Absolutely no idea. Or maybe they're just trying to use this as some like posturing and positioning to be like, hey, you know, what if we make our game way better and deal with some of these big problems with the economy and all this stuff, and then we can toss the blame over to Nuverse. Be like, oh yeah, you know, now that we're apart from Nuverse and we got this new publisher, we can do things more the way we want and make the game better and do all these things you guys always wanted. Because I mean, the game is desperately in need of something like that happening. A lot of people are really waiting for that acquisition overhaul to either come back to the game or decide if the game is going to be something they want to stick with long term. So in terms of trying to position this whole negative situation in a way that could kind of hopefully benefit them long term, it would make sense to kind of throw Nuverse under the bus, whether it is justified or not. And unfortunately, we'll probably never know the true validity of that, but it is what it is. That's what happens when so much of this stuff is done behind closed doors. But yeah, back to compensation. I think the only thing that makes sense is for them to go pretty hard with the compensation because they want to rebuild trust and consumer confidence. Because even if you're someone who wasn't affected by this and isn't in the United States, I have no doubt just watching this all transpire, even from afar, definitely did something to shake the consumer confidence a bit. I've seen quite a bit of that. You know, people just feeling a bit less secure in putting their money into this game because in theory it could disappear at any moment. That is probably the last thing you want to remind your player base about in a live service game, is that, well, you're just paying for a right to use the stuff. You don't actually own anything. And as soon as the servers go down, all that money is down the drain. And this whole debacle with Snap getting banned basically flashed that in bright neon letters at almost all of the player base because it was such a big news event. So I think they are going to be incentivized to go pretty hard with the compensation because I think they really do need to try and find a way to spin this as a bit of a win in spite of a very bad situation. Now, I also think they are not going to be issuing compensation until it returns to the App Store. That just makes sense to me. Why do it twice, right? They probably are going to want to wait for it to come back. That way, any new players or players who deleted the app will get the compensation from this issue. In terms of what the compensation will be, honestly, I don't have a specific guess here. But I do think whatever it is, it's going to be pretty big. And if it's not pretty big, I think there's going to be a pretty big uproar about it. Because shaking consumer confidence is not something you should be taking super lightly, especially in a free-to-play mobile game. So yeah, that's where we're at with the Marvel Snap ban, the App Store, potential compensation. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I would love to hear it. And stay tuned here on the channel for any and all future updates as the story develops and we get more news. That's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.